Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name is Cassidy O'Connor. I'm Public Affairs Specialist for AAA Northeast. I do a lot of presentations around traffic safety topics, so anywhere from, pedestrian safety to how to take an Uber and a Lyft. So a lot of traffic safety programs. And one of the programs we created was this program around Real ID. And we discovered once the Real ID deadline came out originally, that our branches, our AAA branches and branch managers were dealing with a lot of people who had a lot of questions about documents and what does this mean and when do I, when should I get my Real ID? Do I need a Real ID? So there was a lot of kind of overwhelming confusion that we discovered from everyone. So we decided to assist our branches with this program. We've been teaching it. We started teaching it in a few places, but now we've been doing, virtual is the way to go. So we've been virtual programs for a while now since COVID, but it gives us a great opportunity to record, reshare, get a larger reach so that hopefully people in your community who couldn't make it tonight can definitely watch this later and have some questions they may have answered. So we'll get started. I'm here with Liza, who is a branch manager out of Narragansett, so for your town, and then also with Shannon, who is a branch manager out of Warwick. So I have some branch managers with me who are, the real experts and do Real ID every day. So they'll be here to kind of explain a lot of that, a lot of, the documents you need and why, and can definitely answer your questions. So let me just make sure this, oops, nope. All right. So what is Real ID? A lot of people weren't sure exactly what it was or why they needed one, but it's because of the Real ID Act that was passed in 2005. So with 9/11, the attackers on 9/11 had real issued licenses, so state licenses. So really, it's now an extra, security. Other states have already done Real ID. Rhode Island was just kind of one of, I guess, the last few to do so, but it's to have a federal document to get onto federal buildings or to get into planes. So it was the Real ID Act in 2005. So it really established extra security standards for the documents. So not just a state license to get onto a plane, you need a federal recognized document. And aligned with state agencies for new security criteria for licenses and IDs. So that's why a lot of that document is required for Real ID because it is aligned to be a federal recognized document. So this prohibits certain federal agencies from accepting non-Real ID licenses. So to board federally regulated commercial aircraft, access certain federal facilities, nuclear power plants. I don't know if any of you are going to any of those, so those might not be an issue, but typically what comes up where it becomes an issue is for flying, right? So getting on a plane. And how do you know you have the Real ID? You check for the star. So we have an image of what it looks like in the next couple slides. But we'll explain, if Real ID is the right fit for you. They'll explain that process, but basically that's why we have it. It's for that after 9/11, it was, passed in the Real ID Act for that extra security for getting on a flight. So it's a great thing, that extra security. It's great to, know that you're flying with everyone who is who they say they are, right? It's super important. So this star right there is the indicator. So that's how you'll know if you're looking at your license now and you're not sure, maybe, oh, how do I know if I have the Real ID or not? That's an easy indicator to tell right off the bat, the gold star. Okay. So do I have to get a Real ID? No, it's not required. But again, if you're someone who flies a lot, or if you find yourself going to federal buildings, it's definitely you're definitely going to need one by the deadline. So I'm going to start by turning it over to Lisa to take it up from here, and I will let her take it away.
Hi everyone, I'm Lisa Berghorn, the branch manager in your neighborhood Narragansett branch. And we're just going to go over some of the types of documents and such. So what else can you use in place of a Real ID? So what they're looking for is a government issued identification in order to board a domestic aircraft or enter certain federal buildings or nuclear power plants. The most popular one after having the real ID would be a US passport or a US passport card. So if you have a valid passport or a valid passport card, you can definitely use that in place of real ID when the information, when it goes into effect. You can also use your global entry card. So if you've gone through the process of getting a global entry card, you can use that. Permanent resident cards, border crossing cards, US merchant mariner credentials, anything that is on this list is something that you can use. However, I must say that this list can be updated at any time. Things can be removed and things can be added at any time. So you would want to continually check this to make sure that the federal government hasn't done any updates to this list. So for real ID identification documents, there have been some questions as to what you need. If you are looking to add real ID or put real ID on your license when you renew your license, you need 3 main things. First would be your proof of identity. Next would be knowing your social security number, which has to be written on the form. And then third would be proving 2 proofs of residency. That would be where you live, not your PO box or your mailing address, but 2 proofs of residency of where you live. All of these documents have to be original. The federal government does not allow us to take any photocopies. Some folks get documents only to their computers, so you can pull up a PDF and print that PDF. However, it cannot be a photocopy of a document. So the first one is a common proof of identity that you would need. So I'll go into this. So the easiest thing, if you have it, would be a valid, unexpired US passport. So the US passport should have your first name, your middle name, sometimes a middle initial, and your last name. Another proof of identity that you can use would be a birth certificate that is from from the city or the town, an original birth certificate. We'll get into a couple of those. However, it has to be a certified birth certificate. It has to be on secure paper. It has to have a seal on it. It has to show that it is from the Department of Vital Statistics or from the Department of Health. The only birth certificates in the state of, there are no birth certificates that are allowed that have been altered by laminating them, with the exception of the Rhode Island birth certificate that is a small blue laminated card that has a seal on it, either a gold seal or where you can see a raised seal. Those are acceptable, but those are the only documents that are acceptable that are laminated. If you were born abroad, there's a special consular report of birth abroad that you could bring and show that to us, and that's also acceptable for a proof of identity. Any of your proof of identity must have your legal name. It has to have the correct date of birth. What we will be doing is updating your current driver's license and adding your full middle name, which is part of the real ID process. So as long as the information that is on those documents are correct, you will need to bring those in for your proof of identity. So on the next slide, it will show you some information. This birth certificate is a very nice birth certificate. It is affectionately known in the business, if you will, as a Gerber baby birth certificate. Very cute baby. Mom and dad were supposed to pop that picture out and then put a picture of you in there as a keepsake, if you will. This document was actually presented to them prior to any regulations going in effect that require you to have specific documentation for things such as real ID. So unfortunately, for the real ID, this particular birth certificate is not acceptable. And you would have to go to the local town hall or city hall that you were born in and get a certified copy of your birth certificate. However, if you were born after 1960, I believe, then you can go to any city hall or town hall in the state of Rhode Island. If you were born outside of the state of Rhode Island, AAA can help you with finding where you need to go to get a certified copy of your birth certificate that would be acceptable for the purpose of Real ID. If you have a name change, you can go to the next one, Cassidy. Yeah, if you have a name change and you are in need of also getting a document for your name change, you can contact the Department of Vital Records as well and get a copy of your birth certificate or your marriage certificate. You can contact the Department of Health. When we are back in person, there is a Vital Records Department office at the DMV. However, they are closed at this time due to COVID. And they're not taking any requests via mail. So you would have to contact them and make an appointment to go see them. So, and I think we have on the next screen is a copy of a marriage certificate. So if you have had a name change and it is by marriage, you would need a certified copy of your marriage certificate, which is a paper trail of and that proves why your name is what it is today and why it is different from what the name that you were born with. The marriage certificate has to be from the Department of Vital Statistics, Department of Health. It cannot be, unfortunately, from the church or anything other. After you get married at the church, then it gets filed with the state. So the federal government wants to see the document that shows that it was federally recorded. And that's what they're looking for. If you also have had just a standard basic name change, you can bring in the court documents that are the notarized copies of the documents that show your name change. All right. And Shannon's going to take over and go on to the next requirements.
Okay, thank you, Miss Lisa. So if you had previously come into any of our offices and inquired about Real ID, you would have learned that we needed to have the Social Security card as part of the documentation. This year, the state of Rhode Island went back and made a change to the documents that are required for Real ID. And we no longer have to have the proof of social, but it does have to be written down on your form. So along with your birth certificate and your state certified marriage certificate, you'll write down on the form your Social Security. You don't have to bring in the proof of social. So no Social Security card or 1099 for the proof of social. That's actually checked in the background in the DMV system. They'll be able to verify that your Social Security number matches who you are. Next slide, please. Next slide. The second thing you're going to need, or the third, I guess, is the common proof of residency. So you need to prove where you live. You prove where you live through particular certain mail that comes to you. We can use utility bills. If you're using a utility bill, you must make sure it's the full bill, including the portion that you would mail back to make the payment. And it must be issued in the last 60 days. So as far as utility bills goes, you can use gas, electric, telephone, cable, oil, water, sewer, satellite, heat, cell phone. If the utility bill is in the family name, so for example, it's in your husband's name or it's in your wife's name, so long as you share the same last name, we would be able to use that utility bill. Another proof of residency is a personal check or your bank statement. Again, if you're going to use the bank statement, it does need to be issued in the last 60 days. Another opportunity would be your insurance policies. So homeowners or renters, renters or insurance, car, auto insurance. With the auto insurance, you cannot bring that small insurance card that you keep in the car. And when it says for insurance policies, it actually has to be the policy, because we need to take out the declarations page, which shows where you live. Another option would be a lease agreement. So long as the lease agreement is in current effect. You can also use a mortgage bill. Again, you want to make sure it's the full bill and issued in the last 60 days. Here are some examples. And so if you look at the National Grid bill, you see you have the full bill showing the bottom portion that you mail back, a personal check, and then I believe this last one might be, is the declarations page, the insurance declarations page from the policy. These are the insurance cards. Insurance cards cannot be used as proof of residency. We would need it to be the full policy. So why do we need to make sure we're giving all of this information in order to get the Real ID? Because it's a federal program. The federal government set the guidelines, and for us, we're AAA, we're not the DMV, so we have to follow those federal guidelines to a T. We can't deviate from the checklist, but we do try to make sure if you come in and you don't have the right documents, that we work with you to try and ensure you're going to be able to get the right documents and get you back in promptly so that we can get your Real ID completed. So some good news. I know we were originally supposed to have Real ID in effect by October of this year. Last month, the federal government moved the date back to May 2nd of 2023. So at the current moment, if your license doesn't expire until prior to May 2nd of 2023, I would definitely suggest waiting and coming in and bringing all of the documents in with you when your license expires, so that this way you don't have to incur an extra fee. But if you decide you want to do it before then, you absolutely can. It is an update fee of $27.50. There's a form to fill out. We are going to take a new picture. We're going to take your current license if it's not expiring, and we'll give you a temporary, and you'll get the new one in the mail in a couple of weeks. Oh, look. So as I said, that the state ID renewal is $27.50. If you're updating to a Real ID, if you're renewing your state ID, if you're doing a state ID and you're over the age of 51, there's no fee for that. Licenses, it's every 5 years. For anyone who's under the age of 71, and the price is $62.50. The license renewal for age 71 plus is $24.50, and the license renewals for and updates for Real ID is $27.50. So how to get your Real ID at AAA? We do process the Real ID here in Rhode Island. You have to book an appointment in advance. You would get that appointment at AAA.com/appointments. All of our offices do have appointments available. Quite often within the same week, you'll be able to get an appointment. If you don't have the ability to get online and sign up for an appointment, you can always call in to one of our offices. You can speak with one of our representatives who will assist you to get an appointment, or if you leave a voicemail, someone from the office will get back to you the same day. If you call before 3 o'clock, and the following day if you call after 3 o'clock, and we'll help you get scheduled for an appointment. Are there any questions?
I see a question in the chat.
Perfect.
It says, what about young adults living with parents? So I'm going to go with, I believe that may be pertaining to residency documents. So young adults living with their parents can bring a utility bill in the parent's name. Young adults are also eligible to bring school records. It's explained specifically on the DMV's checklist, which is located on their website, or we have the checklist located in the branch. So the students, for instance, could bring a parent's copy of their cable bill that is within the past 60 days and their school report card or school record. If they are renewing their license and they are turning 18 and they're getting, it's on their 18th birthday and they are upgrading to their, coming off of their provisional license. You can also use another great proof of residency is your current valid unexpired driver's license or state ID card. So if your ID or your driver's license is still valid and it does possess the correct address on there, then you can use that as a proof of residency as well.
Two other good proofs of residency too for younger adults, a W-2 in the current year, and also a paycheck issued in the last 60 days. You just want to make sure it has the pay stub attached that shows the hours and the dates and the address. And again, we can also use a bank statement or a personal check. So those are usually the good options that we can give for the younger adults.
So Mary's asking, what if your passport doesn't have your middle initial? Is it still usable? So the long and short of that is yes. The US passport, when you applied for the passport, they went off of basically what you wrote down on the application. So if you're using your passport as your proof of identity, you are saying to us or the person who's processing this is my legal name. So you're saying I only have a first name and I only have a last name. And that proof of identity will be used to process your real ID. If you have a middle name and you use your middle name, then it's recommended that you do not use your passport for your proof of identity and that you bring in your birth certificate, certified copy of your birth certificate, and any name change documents that would apply. Because what we are doing would be updating your driver's license so that it is federally issued, not state issued, which has to include your full name, first, middle, last, and any suffix if you have a suffix. Good question, very good question. Any
And
other?
I know, oh, sorry, I was gonna say, I know also this is gonna get shared for your community's like website and YouTube channel. So feel free to share with everyone else if you know anyone that has questions as well. And if more questions come up, you can always just ask Marilyn for my contact information and I can share the questions over to both Shannon and Lisa. So if you think of any questions after the fact, you can just email me. I'll put my email address in here, but if you forget it, you can just ask Marilyn and I know she has my contact info. So.
And I will share it.
Mary just asked if there is a new form. She got her form in 2019. So Mary, it's going to depend on when you got it in 2019. Because the DMV did update the form for the licenses in 2019. And if I remember correctly off the top of my head, I believe it was April. I believe our form says April of 19. So if on the very bottom of that form, it says April of 19, that would be the most current form. If it doesn't say April of 19, then what I would suggest is you can stop by one of our offices and pick up the most current form, or you can go to the DMV's website under forms and print out the most current form.
Good question.
Well, thank you, everyone. It was very enlightening.
Mhm.
Thank you, and I will be sharing it on our website. So thank you, and sending it to the people who had signed up.
Yeah.
Make it. So thanks
Perfect.
again.
Thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.